Blake, what are some of your favorite books?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who only knows the books of the Bible, and I'm here with my co-host who reads secular books because he is a heathen, Toby Walters.
I also read Christian books. Does that help?
Were they written by God? Heathen, sinner.
It would be fun to play with you, since you said you read books of the Bible, like to, there are a lot of minor prophets, and to give you like, is this a real book of the Bible or not?
We should totally do that at some point.
Yeah, at some point. I didn't have that. I didn't use chat to help me prepare that game today, so we'll have to go with something else.
And this podcast will be used as a archaeological record of what happens when one man uses chat too much, because over time we'll be able to track your brain power dropping.
100%. All right, so speaking of books of the Bible, I wrote one.
A book of the Bible? Heresy.
I know. I would say is it greater than 0% or less than 0% that my book would ever make it into the canon of Scripture?
There's not a number low enough for it to be that.
But hopefully it is a helpful resource to the church in general. But yes, I wrote a book. That's why we're doing this whole series on different chapter elements of my book. And today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, which I'm good at very little, Blake.
I'd say you're good at nothing. Good for nothing as well. We're recording. We should have had the warning you talked about.
This is a Friday afternoon.
Warning, it's Friday at 3 p.m. Anything said by Toby and Blake cannot be held against them in a court of law.
Yes, and also you're fired. But going back to one of the very few things I'm good at in this world is connection. So I remember reading, have you ever read any Malcolm Gladwell?
I haven't read any of it, but I've listened to a lot of his podcasts.
Yeah. So one of the things he said is a lot of us feel like, well, we know X amount of people. Let's say we know 50 people, but most of the time we actually know a couple people that know all those people. There are usually key connectors that know everybody in your circle that if you need to get a hold of blah, 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 you actually go through the connector. That's how you met them. That's your connection to them. A lot of people come back to one person. So I really dream and hope of being that in the church production space, one of those key connectors.
Well, I was in the bathroom earlier today because I just spend most of my work hours there. And I got a friend request from somebody. And yep, every single time, mutual friend, Toby Walters. Every single time.
I do what I can, Blake. I aim to get you friendships in this world. It's a very difficult, it's like a friend wingman.
Yeah. Also, I want to see what your screen time for Facebook is, because I swear you are the king of Facebook.
Well, because I have so many friends.
You can't be friends with I'm telling you, it's 100% right now.
It sends friend suggestions. You might know this person. I'm like, we have 79 mutual friends.
So
okay.
You're just adding randos?
Oh, heck yeah. You think I know all these people? Gosh, Blake.
I'm going to have my social security number stolen.
So one of my favorites, and I'm really a strong believer in you build your network of connections and like things flourish, things grow, opportunities come, relationships are built. It's a beautiful thing. And why are you laughing at me?
Toby's just making friends with strangers and thinking it's going to make good things happen for him rather than bad.
Now, and I feel like we need a little sidebar about how weird you are with strangers. So, for example, I will go over to your house in the middle of the day when we recorded a few podcasts there.
I was about to say, when? You haven't been in my house in ages.
No, I went there for our hangout
stalker.
night.
Yep, that's true.
Like a few weeks ago. But anyways, middle of the day, you
unlatch.
Well, you disable the alarm. You unlock. How many locks are on your front door?
Two.
You unlock both. You let me in. You relock both locks on your door and re-engage the alarm in the middle of the day while both of us are in there.
Yeah.
Do you live in like Beirut?
Listen, man, I live really close to Antioch. Yes, it's a bad area.
So going back to the benefits of connecting with strangers. So we were at Exponential Conference about a year and a half ago, and we had a booth there. A lot of people coming up just asking us, kind of, what do you do? What is Church Gear about? And I love just anytime I can say like, oh, wait, I know such and such, so I can help you do this. And so somebody comes up and asks what we do, and he's like, this is amazing. And he said, I'm a worship pastor at a little, but like a small church in Kokomo, Indiana. Blake, do you know where Kokomo is?
I really don't like people renaming like great locations in the middle of nowhere, like stealing their names.
So I actually knew where Kokomo was. It's about 45 minutes outside of Indianapolis. And I said, so I kind of made the connection. Oh, I know Kokomo. I went through there like a month ago. And he said, that's great because we have speakers for our church, but we only have 2 speakers. And our room is so wide that the 2 speakers won't cover the full room. He's like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, you probably need more speakers. And he said, well, I don't really have any budget and I don't know where the speakers should go. And I said, well, I was just in Indianapolis visiting some of our wonderful church friends there. Can I send an email to some of those production directors to see if they could help? And he said, heck yes. So he gave me his email. I then sent an email out to 4 production directors. And I kid you not, in less than a minute, I don't know what a minimum is.
It's a word now.
It's a Friday afternoon word. In less than a minute, one of them responded and said, I drive through Kokomo on my way to work every day. I'd love to stop by and help you fix this problem. And in less than an hour, another one responded and said, oh, I want to come too. Also, we have extra speakers sitting in the storage space at our church. I'll just bring them with me. And so one email solved his problem in such a profound way that he had been, struggling with this for I don't even know how long, but that to me is a beautiful example of the power of connection.
And when Toby told me this story the first time, he's like, I might get into heaven now. Speaking of somebody who we know will actually get into heaven, is the director of project management at ESB Group. What is happening? You're full of
swallowed down the wrong pipe right when you said that.
Nope, he's just laughing. I'm a comedic genius. And another comedic genius who's definitely getting into heaven is the director of project management at ESB Group and former production director at Church of the Highlands, Justin Fire in the Sheets.
That's quite the intro.
Yeah.
That all just may be a first for me. That's very special.
I thought Toby was just laughing really hard, and I was like, man, I'm the greatest comedian of all time.
You're actually not funny at all.
Hey.
Would this have been the first podcast ever where one of the hosts choked to death while recording his podcast? I mean, we were close to making history here.
There's so many podcasts out there. I'm sure somebody has died while doing a podcast.
Y'all talk for a little bit, and I'll look it up.
Yeah. Yeah, you could ask ChatGPT.
Everything's on the internet nowadays. You could probably find it.
Yeah. Justin, are you to the point where you're no longer shocked by Blake and I's antics?
Yeah, and I'm really not even disappointed anymore because I've come to have that low of level of expectation that you guys meet it every time. So it's just a new way of looking at things.
We aim to displease, so...
And you are hitting that target 10 times out of 10. And I'm so proud of you both.
Yep. I don't know that we could tell the story on this podcast necessarily, but on Church Gear After Dark, whenever we start that, we met you for the first time in person at Philo. And Blake struggles with like dry, sarcastic humor. He doesn't get it. So if you take Justin Firesheets' last name and then combine it with dry, sarcastic humor and introduce to Blake, it just played for an incredibly comedic moment.
Justin said that he had a prior profession before this, and I totally bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually his stage name. I don't know. Maybe we have to cut all this.
Maybe.
But also, there have been not podcasters that have died while podcasting, but they gave me a list of podcasters that died.
Huh.
And one of them was an anti-vaccine conspiracy theorist who then died of COVID-19.
Wow. Yeah, this is all getting cut and put on the Church Gear After Dark. It's amazing.
Toby, get us back. Well,
all
Toby
right.
might still be choking.
Toby,
you're going to die.
It's quite possible. So, Justin, we first met you at Philo, and tell us, first of all, what you have been doing at Philo, and then rewind a little bit and tell us, like, your background in church production and what led to your role today.
And how your parents met.
So, Philo, it is. So I had been... I was friends with Todd back when he was at Willow Creek. We met through church, and this is part of like a networking story that I can get back to. But I'd been a presenter at Philo for a while, and then several years ago they asked, "Hey, instead of just presenting a class, can you kind of own one of the tracks and find other presenters that can come in and help bring content?" And then after that, they said, "Hey, next year, can you oversee all the tracks and help bring in all the presenters for all the things?" So sure, why not? So the last, I don't even know, maybe 4+ plus 4 or 5 years, maybe. I don't even know. That's kind of what I do for the Philo conferences. I'm part of the team that helps bring all of the presenters to the table. I've got a team of track leaders that oversee each one of the 8 breakout tracks. And so we work together to figure out what topics we need to address at the conference, who are some of the best presenters that we can find in the church tech world to bring that content to the table. I said best. And so that's something we're very passionate about, is trying to find things that are relevant and helpful and useful for people. Even though there's a wide variety of attendees at the conference, whether they're international or domestic or small churches or big churches, we want to try to provide content that has some sort of practical, scalable application for every church of every size, so that there is something that everybody can take home and try to implement, or they can try to learn more about it or whatever. And so that's something we try to improve at every year, is how can we make sure we're getting the best content out there for everyone, so that when they're coming, they're actually learning things they can take home and use when they go back to their ministry on Monday. Anyway, so that's what I'm part of with the Philo team, and to get to hang out with you guys a little bit when you're there at the conference too. So that's a win all the way around.
Sorry about Blake.
Please, Toby.
No apology necessary. It's all just understood.
You know when people take water to get the pills down? I'm the water and you're the pills.
So I actually help them.
Yeah, but I get it down. All right, ask your next question, Toby.
So, your position, I know you don't work at Philo, but your job there, so to speak, is to connect the conference with all the speakers, essentially. Like you function as a connector.
Yeah, in a way. And that's something I really enjoy doing, is finding people that maybe are not super familiar with the Philo community, but may be able to add value to that community. And we try to build relationships with people that can come in. And so the people that are helping lead certain tracks, they may know somebody that could be a great fit. Well, hey, come on, be part of the team. Or maybe somebody I've got a relationship with that we asked to come and lead a class, or do a panel session or something like that. So every year we're trying to kind of expand that circle of influence, so that more and more people are not only familiar with what Philo does as an organization, but they're also more familiar with others in the church tech world, so they can continue building those relationships and continue strengthening that fabric of people that are able to lean on each other and learn from each other kind of during this process.
And rewind to, kind of where you got started in church production, and how did you start to, build this muscle of connecting people?
And how your grandparents met.
We're just going to keep going back in history.
Right. So Toby's question. So I started on staff at Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, Alabama. Started on staff early in 2009. I had been in the sports media world before that, and was volunteering some at the church. They ended up approaching me about a position. I said, okay. And really had to learn a lot on the job, because it was so different than what I had been used to in the sports media world. And early on, at one of the first monthly all-staff meetings I went to, our pastor said something along the lines of, I expect all of you to know at least 5 people at other churches that do your job better than you. The idea was, at the time, we were a growing church. We'd only been in a permanent facility for about a year and a half. A lot of people on staff had never been in this position before, either A, in ministry, or B, at a ministry that was growing at that level. And so the expectation was, hey, we don't know it all. We need to find other people that are ahead of us that we can learn from. But when he said it, it registered as kind of a shock thing with me of, holy smokes, I hope I never get called on in a staff meeting, because I don't know 5 churches. I don't even know if I can name 5 other churches. I didn't know anybody in the church tech world. And so I'm one of those people that when I get presented with a challenge or an obstacle, I'm trying to figure out how to solve the problem, how to get through the obstacle. So that became kind of a working challenge for me of, what do I need to do to start building relationships? And that's not maybe the most natural or comfortable thing for me. I am more of an introverted personality that can be outgoing when I need to be. So like public speaking and stuff, I love doing it. It's great, but it's exhausting because being around people and all that interaction is kind of draining for me. I gain strength from being by myself. So putting myself out there to go find other relationships to build or randomly meeting people that were outside of my social circle, that's not something that is natural or exciting or energizing for me. But I knew that in order for me to be successful, I was going to have to force myself to get out of my own comfort zone and stretch myself in ways that were not normal because the situation required it. And I was not going to let that be an excuse for why I didn't do what my pastor was asking me to do. So over time, I had to start forcing myself out of that comfort zone. And so one of the first opportunities was that fall. I'd been on staff maybe 6 months. And I was at a church tech conference that our pastor was speaking at. And I decided that every class I went to, I was going to go to the presenter after that class to introduce myself, get their contact info, and find out if they could point me to 3 other people in the industry that they thought I needed to know and see if they could help facilitate that connection. And so that's how I started meeting people over and over and over again, is just there's a pebble that creates a ripple, and then we create another one and another one. And I started building this relational network like that. Well, a few years in of kind of growing that, just asking people, hey, who do you know that I need to know? I became introduced to Outreach Magazine, where every year they would put out a list of the largest growing churches in America and the fastest growing churches in America. And I said, you know what? I really need to make sure that I'm meeting the people that are on this list, because these are the big churches that do what we're trying to do. They have more campuses or more people or whatever, and I need to be able to learn from them. And so I just started cold calling every church on that list, going to their website, contact me. Or if they listed staff, I'd find somebody in worship or tech or communications or production or an executive pastor, just anybody I could find. Here's who I am. Here's what I do. Can you help me get connected with somebody at your ministry that does something similar? And I started building relationships that way of people that I otherwise had no idea that they even existed. They're asking me, who are you? Where is your church? I've never heard of you. And at this point, we'd grown to 25, 30,000 plus people on a weekend. At this point, we're in the top 10 largest churches in America. And people are like, I've never heard of you. And it's like, that's okay. I don't care how big your church is. I can learn from you. Even if we're bigger than you, you can learn from anybody. And so then I started going through the lists of, the fastest growing churches that were, wow, they grew to 1,200 people in 3 weeks. Well, great. Let me learn how they're doing something. Maybe I can learn something from them. They're a fraction of our size, but it's like, competence and capability and ingenuity can come from anybody at any size. So it's like, I want to learn how they're dealing with being a fast growing church, even though they're still smaller than me, because maybe they're doing more with less. And that's something I need to learn from. And so they kind of just started growing like that. And if my pastor was preaching at certain churches, I wanted to know the tech people at those churches, because when he came back with some brilliant idea, I wanted to be able to call the people that were actually doing that and say, okay, our pastor saw this. Is that actually what you're doing? And if so, help me understand it in case he asks us to do the same thing. And so I just kind of forced myself to get out there and meet people and build a network that way. And it just began growing year after year after year after year. And that's kind of where it went.
Toby, can you imagine? He tells his pastor, hey, you gave us this directive. You cast this vision for us to be connected. And so I did A, B, C, D, E, F. Did all of this. And his pastor's like, I don't even remember telling you that.
That would be, hilarious and crushing at the same time.
Because as you say, Toby, I'm on to my 20th idea since I said that to you.
Pretty
much.
And
he changed Justin's entire freaking life.
Blake, if I told you...
Well, it would be a lot better than him saying, what was your name again? Who are you?
Ooh, good point.
So
hot take, a pastor shouldn't be able to do that on staff. Their church has got to get pretty big before the pastor can't know the name.
I mean, how many staff members do you think Highlands has across all the campuses, Justin?
Right now, I don't know, 550,
hang on.
maybe.
I'm talking central campus, someone that it's like reasonable for you to bump into.
Well, do you think it's not reasonable for Pastor Chris to tell the entire 550 staff this exact directive? And is he going to know everybody's name across 550 people? Like,
I've lost interest in this thought experiment. What my cousin does is his own thing.
I thought he's your uncle.
What my uncle cousin does. remember, I'm not going to say their name. We have a friend who said they did the genealogy. He's in production. They did the genealogy of their family, and they realized their brother was actually their cousin, or their brother cousin is now what they call him. All right, let's get back to Justin.
Obviously, a church in
We are so far in the weeds, right? I don't even know what to do.
We're filming at Friday at 3, y'all.
So, Blake, if I asked you to find 5 other people that did your job better than you, what would your response be?
We're not bleeping anymore. We're not cussing anymore. Impossible.
Exactly.
Bleeping impossible.
See, this is what I deal with here, Justin. Blake thinks he's the greatest marketing branding guy on the planet, so it's
Well, I've spent 5 years with you, Toby. Shouldn't I be best by now? You taught me nothing?
I would say it would be impossible to find only 5. I mean, it feels like the number would be a lot higher.
Yes. Yeah. So, Justin, again, we're talking about Church of the Highlands. A lot of people know Church of the Highlands at this point, typically like the second largest church in the nation currently. So when you're calling up these people, a lot of them had never heard of you, but then you're saying, yeah, we're actually a really big church. Like we got 20,000 people. Oh, well, is it only, a big church thing? If somebody at a volunteer at a little church is thinking, well, what am I going to get if I reach out to Elevation or Gateway or Willow Creek? Like they're not even going to respond to me. They don't have anything to offer me. Is it a big church thing, or can any church follow this approach?
Yeah, I mean, it really needs to be an anybody kind of a thing. It's easy to see big churches, quote unquote, and kind of put them on a pedestal because of their size. And I get that because there are so few people that are at a certain level of attendance on what they do on the weekends. But if you think about the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of churches in America, there are a lot more churches like you, the average listener or viewer of this podcast, than there are that are like a Gateway or a Church of the Highlands or a Saddleback or a Life Church or a CCV. I mean, there's a dozen churches in the country probably that have more than 20,000 people on a weekend, but there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of churches that have between 250 and 800 people on a weekend. I mean, that is so much normal than that mega church. But we've kind of in a way normalized the really big thing, and we've forgotten how to appreciate the fact that there are so many more churches that may not even have full-time staff leading production. That they may have a volunteer tech lead and a tech team of 4 that do everything. That's a lot more normal, quote unquote, than churches that have dozens of technical staff, right? And so I would never want anybody to feel like they are so far on an island because their situation is so unique to them that some idea can't possibly apply to them. It's like, I guarantee you there are other people in your seat just like you all across America. But the challenge is we're never going to find each other unless we try. Like, I can sit here and bemoan the fact all day long that I don't have anybody to be in relationship with that understands what I do, but that's never going to change until I start putting energy into finding other people. Like it's that saying, like, be the friend you want to see in others. I have to be the person sometimes that models something. I can't assume people are going to come looking for me to be my friend. But in every town in America, there are churches. There's no reason why I can't reach out to people that are on my own doorstep and have that be the first step of the process is, hey, let's build a local community of church guys that are in our zip code or in our town or in our section of town. And we at least have relationships with each other. We can get lunch once a month and talk about what we do and what our day jobs are and how we juggle being a full-time employee in the mortgage banking industry, but then I also spend 25 hours a week volunteering at my church, and it's really overwhelming sometimes. Let me find other people in my own backyard that are dealing with the same things I am, and now we can form a social community of people that support each other. And now maybe it branches out to, hey, we need a projector for this outdoor thing our youth are doing this weekend. Do any of you guys have a projector or a screen that we could borrow? Now we've built a network where we're not just socially connecting, but we're able to share ideas. We're able to share technology. We're able to help support each other regardless of theology or dogma or whatever, denominational preference. We're just tech people trying to help each other out, So maybe my first step doesn't have to be, how do I call the super big church all the way across the country that feels unattainable? But maybe the first step just needs to be, how can I build some relationships with people in my own backyard so that I feel the closeness of that community of people that are doing the same thing I'm doing? Then we can grow it from there. Maybe one of them knows a guy who knows a guy, and now we're able to start leveraging that community influence and getting connected with other people outside of our circle. You never know what other people are going to bring to the table for ideas or networking or relationships. And so let's try to build our own little sphere and then lean on what everybody else brings to the table.
So I like the idea of thinking locally. So let's just say, somebody's thinking, oh, I want to make my live stream look like Elevation. I'm going to reach out to the guys at Elevation, be like, how do you do what you do? I would assume, and we'll get to this in a second, that, somebody at Elevation respond like, well, why don't you come over and sit with us on a Sunday? You can hang out with the team, watch what we do. And they're like, oh, well, I'm in Oklahoma. And then the guys at Elevation are like, okay, like the invitation's still there, but maybe call a church, in town. So let's just assume somebody, when you were at Highlands, somebody within 30 miles of Birmingham reached out and said, I'd love to learn about what you do at Highlands. What was your response when you would receive emails like that?
Yeah, it's always welcoming. Like, hey, come on. Do you want to see how one of our campuses works? So you can see a portable environment? Do you want to see a smaller permanent campus so you can see how we do things in an auditorium of 800? Or are you wanting to come to our broadcast campus and see what it's looking like there? And then we'll figure out how to get people there, give them a tour, have them hang out with people. Maybe we'll drive them to a couple places. I feel like that's something that's that's always been part of the DNA of Highlands. Is we got to where we were because other people were willing to share things with us. And so we have a responsibility, and it's something that our staff always enjoyed, of being able to help other people and take the knowledge that we had and share that with others. And it can be easy, I think, for anybody out there to feel like, oh, I'm just church little guy. These big people don't care about me. They don't want to help me. They don't have time for me. The people that I was fortunate enough to build relationships all across the country, they all, probably to a fault sometimes, love helping people at other churches. And so if you're believing this idea that people don't want to help because they're so big or they're too busy or they don't have the time, I guarantee you that those things are going to be inaccurate, because that's not the mindset of the people that I was fortunate enough to build relationships with. And I'm confident that that's really not the approach of 99% of the people in this industry. I think all of us that have served at churches want to try to help other people when we can. So don't let yourself feel disqualified. Don't give somebody a no when you haven't even asked. Give them the opportunity to say yes and help you out, because I guarantee you it's going to be an opportunity. And if it is a situation like this where and I would say something that's great about social media now is you don't have to go scrolling through some church's website to find people. You can probably find their teams on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or whatever, and you can get connected to people that way that you can learn from, which is a great resource. But even if you were to try to reach out to somebody all the way across the country and they said, yeah, come hang out. Oh, I can't because I'm in this part of the country over here. There's a really good chance that first church can come back and say, oh, well, I know somebody at this other church that's closer to you. Would you want me to help you create a connection there? And maybe you can go hang out with those people if that would be more attainable for you. That was something I did. Oh, you're in Phoenix? Let me introduce you to 3 or 4 guys I know in Phoenix. Or your story earlier about Indianapolis. Oh, there's people in that area. Let me make sure you know those guys too. So, okay, if you can't come hang out with me, that's okay. What can I do to still help you get connected with somebody else that you can learn from? And I think there are more people than we realize in the industry that have that helpful of a mindset that want to help their fellow church techs be successful.
And it's my assumption and my experience, like if you want to have lunch with the lead pastor at a big church, it's probably not going to happen. Like gets requests all the time, has an incredibly busy schedule. If you want to have lunch with the worship leader, it's going to be tough. Like they get inundated with requests all the time. But in my experience, like the production community has felt incredibly open to requests. Like it just seems like they love requests and they love to help whenever asked. Has that been your experience when you cold called or cold emailed texts at other churches?
Yeah, I mean, I would reach out to people and say, hey, do you have any time? And they would offer me a wide variety of days and times, and we'd find something, and we'd be midway through the call, and I would realize that, like, they're on vacation, taking time out of their vacation because they wanted to talk and share things with somebody. There are people that would spend time on their off days or on their commute to or from work. And so there have always been kind of this approach that I have seen of what can I do to help? If you need it, let me figure out how I can be available to assist in any way I can, which I think is awesome. I mean, and I totally get when people need to have boundaries and, hey, I've got other priorities and stuff. Totally understand that. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But it's been really cool also to see people that say, hey, I don't see this as work or a burden or something I have to do or I'm obligated to do. I want to do this. I'm looking forward to do this. I'd be glad to find time, even if it means that I'm taking time out when I could be running errands or playing golf. I'll be glad to hop on a call with you and talk through things. I mean, that's been great to see people that willing to give of themselves and their time to try to help others.
And give us some examples of very practical, real world help that you got when you started to build your network at Highlands.
The 2 churches that I got connected with first were Elevation and North Point over in Atlanta. The North Point connection, because we had gone under contract with an AVL firm based in Atlanta to do a big construction project for us. That ball had started rolling before I came on staff, and that company did a lot of work with North Point. And I made a comment at some point about how I need to meet other people. And they said, oh, well, let us do what we can to help you get connected with those guys over there. And so they were fortunate to get me connected with Micah Stevens and Brendan Petty over at North Point, who became tremendous resources for me in my journey. As I was trying to figure things out, I would reach out to them probably every couple months with an email or a text or something. Hey, I've got a question. Do you have any time? And without fail, they were always so gracious and so willing to answer questions. Our campus, our broadcast campus, is about 2.5 hours away, maybe, from where theirs is. And we had multiple times we would take field trips over to that part of Atlanta to take tours of their facilities and see things in person and ask questions and meet other staff people. And their team was always so accommodating to do that. And that was a huge, huge benefit for us as a staff. And then with Brian Poole, when he was the production director at Elevation, he was one of those guys I met at that church tech conference that first fall that I was on staff. I don't even remember right now what the class was that he was doing, but I went up to him afterwards, was like, dude, you sound like you're brilliant. Can we stay in touch? Can I, ask you questions about things? He was like, sure, whatever. Elevation at that time was smaller than us, but they were growing like crazy and doing some really awesome stuff in the tech space. And he became a tremendous sounding board for me for several years, just being able to bounce ideas off of them, because there were a lot of things that Elevation was doing in the early 2010s that were really kind of cutting edge at the time. They were very new. And it was great to be able to learn from him and his team for how they were scaling to campuses and doing things like that. And we learned a ton from those guys. And so those two ministries were hugely impactful on me and how we were able to shape some things with our technology approach. But then another piece is at that conference, I also went to a class where they were talking about leading teams, like tech leadership. And I met the guy that was leading that class afterwards, and we became good friends. And he actually is the one that helped get me involved with the church tech conferences that I started speaking at, starting back in 2010 and 2011. He was vouching for me when nobody knew who I was, and that opened up, I don't know how many countless, probably hundreds of doors in the last 15 years because of that rapport that we built. But I asked him, who are 3 people I need to know and get connected with? And one of those guys was Dennis Choi, who you guys know so well. And Dennis is a friend to about everybody in the church tech world. And meeting Dennis is how I got to meet other people that were involved in big church circles and roundtables. And that's how I got to meet Saddleback. That's how I got to meet Todd Elliott at Willow Creek. That's how I got to meet some of the biggest and most influential churches in the country back in the mid 2010s. That's when I met Jeff Vandergiesen when he was at Mars Hill. Now he founded Amplio. But I built so many great relationships through that circle of guys, and relationships that still continue now. And it's all the trickle effect of just a couple of small conversations that I had when I was first starting out. And I had no idea back then the kind of doors that were going to open from all of that.
And I know we're all really good at making excuses. Like Blake's excuse right now is that it's now 3:30, 3:40 on Friday afternoon.
It's 3:45 and I've had no drinks today.
Yeah. So are you even alive?
Yeah, barely
alive.
My Fitbit is like need alcohol. You know how most people's it's like need steps. It's like need alcohol.
Yeah. And I'm scared to understand what your like the inner workings of your body. It doesn't make sense.
You know how things can run in the opposite sometimes?
Uh-huh.
My body runs in the opposite. So all the bad stuff is actually what keeps me alive.
So, Justin, we're really good at making excuses. So I'm going to put on my hat as I am a part-time, like 10 hours a week tech guy at a local church. And I'm thinking, I don't have any budget. I don't have any travel time. I'm not going to go to these conferences and meet these people. I don't have time to search websites or blah, blah. We make all these excuses. What are some of the like easiest first steps to just make, like, who are the easiest connections to make and what are the easiest ways to make them?
Wait, Justin, I just want to point out that I love that Toby had to put on a different, mindset to make excuses because he's already great at it. Blew through his budget this year. And then when we did yearly goals last year, on one of his goals, he just said, I lost interest. So, sorry, Justin. I just wanted you to know that full context as you answer his question. Maybe you can give him some easy steps on being a better founder.
On being a better founder. Okay, love it. Yeah, I'll do that on the next episode of the podcast. I think. I think the easiest things to do right now. Again, social media has made a lot of things so easy. There are and I know there are plenty of knocks on all of the platforms for things that are dumb about them, but there are lots of benefits. And regardless of how you feel about Facebook and Facebook trolls and so forth, there are a ton of groups on Facebook that revolve around building community, meeting people. We're users of the same product. So how do we, have this community learning from each other? So whatever your live streaming platform is, or your audio console, or, the type of broadcast cameras you use or whatever, there's probably a group out there that you can join with other like-minded people that you can ask questions of. And there are even larger groups out there that are just in general, tech groups that you can ask questions of, hey, is anybody in this group from this city in this state? And find people that answer that are close to you, that are within, an hour drive or 30 minutes, and ask them questions. Again, maybe you don't have the margin to go somewhere, but maybe you can ask them if they've got the ability to come closer to you and meet up for lunch or coffee, or come visit your facility and give you feedback or something. There are plenty of easy ways to make excuses, but there are plenty of easy ways to overcome those if we're willing to put the time and energy into it. Again, I guarantee there are people out there that would love to help, that would love to build relationships, that would love to provide support and encouragement, that would love to hang out for lunch, that would love to meet other people in their city. And all these people need is somebody who's willing to take the first step to build that connection. And you, dear listener / viewer, you have the opportunity to be the one that starts a change, and you have no idea how much it will impact somebody else. Just like these ripple effects in my life that I never foresaw 15 plus years ago, you have no idea the outcome of that first step that you can take, what the outcome of that is going to be in your own life, the ministry that you serve at, another church in your community, another church across the state. You have no way of knowing. But that's why we've got to be willing to take that first step, because the unknown could be incredible, and we will have never found that out if we just leaned on our excuses all the time.
Can I encourage some people on this moment? The reason I'm working at church here is because we were at a church service. They said reach or greet the person next to you. And my wife, who's an extreme introvert, which I think all of our tech friends can relate to, she does not typically do this, but she said she got a good vibe about this couple next to her. She made friends with them. They were in a small group that was about to turn over. Half of them were, or all of them, but that couple were leaving for another church. Not saying it's a small group leader's fault at all. And so they were relaunching, and they were like, hey, after we got to know them, they're like, you should do this group with us. Well, guess who was in charge of that group?
Shelly, my wife?
Oh my gosh, Toby. So if my wife hadn't introduced herself at church, I never work at church gear. Toby's like, man, I was so close. And then secondly,
it's really your wife's fault that you have become the scourge unleashed upon all of us.
Yes. And oh my gosh, he's so right.
Yep.
I also don't like how true that sounded when it came out of his mouth. And I'll also just say Justin's extremely right that like it's very easy to find people on social. When Toby sends me a list of who to get for the podcast, he doesn't give me their name, email, and phone number.
I give you their name.
He gives me their name. And it's pretty easy to find them. Like, make friends with a bunch of people in production, and then Facebook and Instagram will know, oh, this person is looking for a production person. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Blake, I'm going to carefully hand this over to you and say if you want to ask about a disaster story, but maybe it can be, connection network related.
Well, Justin, just as you just said, the disaster, the Hiroshima in the church production space was my wife introducing herself, because now I've been unleashed upon the church production community. And that's been a disaster for everyone involved. So what's a disaster you were a part of? How did you handle it? How did you come back from it? And bonus points if it's a social disaster instead of a tech disaster, since that's been the theme today.
Or maybe your network of connections helped you avoid that disaster.
Or maybe they told you one of their great stories, when y'all were in the tech tribe.
Yeah. So a story I enjoy telling, I'm not going to say a disaster, but it ended up becoming kind of an awkward moment. So I think it was it was my second month on staff, at our third month. So we at the time did services every Wednesday night. Now they're just the first Wednesday of the month, but I think it was 2009, the first Wednesday of April happened to be on April Fool's Day. So it was April the 1st. And we had a thing whenever we would have a visiting speaker, we would play like a music bed underneath their intro. So whoever was introducing them would introduce them. There's applause from everybody, and then the person kind of walks up on stage. This is before, I guess, we figured out, you could just have your keys guy just kind of play a bed underneath them or whatever. We weren't smart enough back then to do that. This was 2009. And so we would just play some generic music track. Well, I texted my boss during the day about this, because the pastor that was speaking, a visiting pastor, a very good friend of our pastor, his name is Joe Champion, and he's the pastor of Celebration Church, which is based in Austin, Texas. And so I texted my boss, who is on our executive leadership team, and our senior pastor's older brother. As a joke, I asked him, hey, when he comes out for his music bed, can I play We Are the Champions from Queen? And a couple hours later, he just texts me back, sure. And I'm, okay, cool. So that's what we play. That's what I've got queued up and ready. And so, we introduced the guest pastor, and here, our special friend, Joe Champion. And so we are the and so he's kind of walking on stage, kind of, this curious look on his face, bobbing his head. Well, what I didn't realize is that my boss was not in the service that night. He was working in his office and had been delayed responding to my text message because after he said, sure, I responded, are you really sure? Or are you joking because it's April Fool's? And so we introduced the guest speaker at roughly 7:40, maybe. And at about 7:43, I get a text message. Of course I'm joking. I would never be serious about something like that. We would never do something that immature during one of our services. You're right. We wouldn't ever do something like that during our service. Ha ha. Well, so funny story. We actually did this thing. He ended up getting a laugh out of it. I did not get in trouble, which was great. But that was one of those moments where I went and I told him later, I was like, man, let's just forever agree that on April Fool's, it's all just straight talk communication, like no joking, no misinterpretation of what we can or can't do. We're just going to be serious now. That way, none of us end up in the ditch on accident. And so he agreed that was a good idea. And so I never did that again. But that was kind of a fun little story.
Blake, I love that. You ask Brian, who is your boss now, can I do this on the podcast? And what is his response always?
He always says, if you have to ask me, that should tell you you can't do it. To which now I don't ask him for anything.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Also, Justin saying that their church was like, we're too mature for that. We would never do that. Toby, you and I wouldn't last 30 minutes.
Yeah. I heard, I think it was a podcast, and it was a warning on a podcast, warning for mature audiences only. And I was like, oh my gosh, I immediately text Blake. I'm like, we need to put a warning at the front of our podcast. Warning for immature audiences only.
I think that still probably will happen once we're done with your book series.
Exactly.
I don't want to put it on there for that. Well, Justin, we really appreciate you, man. Just spreading the message of community like wildfire. What would be a tech takeaway if we were going to give that final last summation of today's episode? What would you say to a room full of production people?
You have no idea how much better your life will be when you have other people that understand what you are doing. Because there's so much that it can be easy to internalize. Again, or we marginalize ourselves, think we don't matter, we don't count, nobody knows what I'm dealing with, I'm the only one. And we just feel like we have to fight that battle in silence. We've got to solve all the problems on our own. We've got to deal with the emotional weight on our own. Not true, man. None of us can do this by ourselves. And our situation requires us really to have a community that we can count on so that we can be the healthiest and best version of ourselves, relationally, mentally, emotionally, technologically. We need people to lean on. We need a community of people that can help us reach our real potential. And I'd encourage everybody out there to take the steps necessary to try to find that, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, honestly, I was going to say my tech takeaway is like, he basically said it. Actually do this. Like, actually go make a tech friend, reach out to us, tell us how it went, or tag us on social and say, I'm hanging out with my tech tribe that you guys told me to finally make. We'll repost it. It'll be great. It'll change your life.
I can almost guarantee it could take you less than 30 minutes to make 5 friends who understand church production within 30 minutes of you.
Apparently, just pull up Toby's Facebook and befriend 5 of them, and they will be techs.
Yeah, or you could even just message me on Facebook and be like, can you introduce me to 5 people that are within 30 minutes of me? I'll get you in the right direction.
Hey, take Toby up on that. I love the thought of Toby having like 100 messages when he gets off of this episode. Well, Justin,
you think that many people listen to this?
Oh, I mean, Toby's got a lot of family members in Texas, dude. If you had anything to plug, anywhere you want to point people towards, what would you say, Justin, as we wrap?
Well, if you need a good AVL integration firm in the eastern half of the country, then reach out, esbgroup.net. It's where I work. It helps pay the bills. But then we talked earlier about the Philo conference. What an incredible community that is, of ways that you can learn how to improve your craft. You can build relationships with people, not just through the conference and meeting people there, but also their cohort opportunities they have of how you can, essentially it's online small groups, let's call it that, of getting connected with people across the country. And honestly, there are other tech conferences out there. SALT is great, CFX, the Capture Summit. There are plenty of opportunities out there where you can meet people and build relationships. And I would encourage everybody to try to figure out what is that thing that I can look into. Even if maybe I don't have money, let me try to find something that's free, even if it's just listening to podcasts and then following what those yahoos tell me to do. There's something out there for everybody.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us, Justin, and thank you to the listener for dealing with us on a Friday. And now it's time for a Church Tech Confessional, where church production people confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
One Sunday, I was running front of house at my church, and we were singing Graves in the Gardens. And right before we got to the major bridge, where it goes, "You turn morning to dancing," I decided to change the tempo for some odd reason, and I hit the mute button 4 times during the high part of the song. It turns out that every person in the entire audience decided to turn around and look at me.
Hey, do you have your own Church Tech Confessional that's, 45 seconds to 2 minutes? Send it to blake@churchgear.com, and you might just hear it on the podcast.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Toby, I've got our newest idea for Church Gear.
Is it to tell everybody to go to tobywalters.com or churchgear.com/TobyWalters to buy this book?
That was exactly, you pulled that right out of my brain.
But if that wasn't it, what else would it be?
We should start a Church Tech friend finder. So it's like a dating app, but instead it's like called Tech Tribe.
I know. Do you swipe right?
You swipe
left?
right, swipe left. And when you make a new tech friend, you both get the book and you read the book together.
It's a little book club.
It's a little book club.
Yeah, it's a little connection. I like it. And also, as Justin pointed out, how much better your life becomes when somebody understands what you do. That's why I hired other people at Church Gear here that you report to.